Good morning. We're continuing this beautiful Shabbaton in Belgium, and this lecture, not like the other ones that we had, Bezrat Hashem will put on a website. That's why I'm filming it. We couldn't do it on Shabbat, so at least I have one memory from you. Yeah. התחלתי כבר. כן. And it's one of the most interesting lectures, even for people that are completely secular, that are not so interested to hear words of Torah. This is a very scientific lecture, and I'm sure you'll never forget it. One of the most popular questions that people have, what's going to happen to me in the day that I will have to be transferred from here to another world? Am I going to become sand, like some people think, and then there's nothing else? Or basically, like some claim, I'm going to be separated from my body and go to another world, like the religious people claim. Not only Jews, Christians and Muslims also accepted the opinion of Judaism. They admit that what God told the Jews, what the Jews claim, that the soul separates from the body and goes to another world, is 100% true. They believe in heaven and hell. It's a major thing in their religion, in a mosque, in a church. Many other cults also accepted that. Is it possible to think that everybody is wrong? That's the question. In the next hour or so, we're going to prove scientifically, not to believe. You know, you already know me by now. By me, there's no belief. Believing means not knowing in science. The belief only starts after you know. For instance, the Torah says, "V'yadata hayom." You should know I'm your God. You should know I took you out of Egypt. You should know I'm the master of universe. The whole nation should know the hand of Hashem. After you know, then all the beliefs come. You believe that Hashem will keep His word, that everything He says is the truth. But first you have to know. If there's no knowledge, it's very hard to believe. Very hard to believe. Also, it's not so wise to believe in something that cannot be proven. Yeah, they can come in. Yeah.
There's space in the front.
There's places right here in the front. So, come forward. Those who are in the back, maybe they can move forward. Also, just try not to make noise with a chair if it's possible. And everything I'm going to show in this lecture is based on science and based on Torah. Now, when I say science, the specialists that specialize in life after death, they are called, in the medical world, they call parapsychologists. In Hebrew, parapsychologim. That's what it is. There's not regular psychology people. It's people that are specialized in interviewing people who died and came back to life. They collect all the information, and later they match all the stories from different cultures, from different languages, from all over the world. And they are very, very surprised to find that all the people in the world that died and came back to life, they all have one story, not two versions, one version. All of them had the same journey to the soul until the moment they came back to life. We're going to see, and as I'm starting the lecture, we reviewed the Torah right in the beginning. It's a description of the creation of the world. How God made the world in 6 days, and in 7 days rested. And in the 6th day, which is the most important day of the creation, that's when Adam was made. Adam and Eve. Adam v'Chava. So obviously the whole world was made for us. So that's the most important thing, day of the creation. And then came Shabbat. Right in the beginning, the Torah described the creation of mankind. Vayitzer Hashem Elokim et ha'adam afar min ha'adama. And Hashem created the man, sand from the ground. Vayipach ba'apav nishmat chayim. He blew into his nostrils. The same thing like you blew air into a balloon. He blew into the nostrils of a man. He blew a living soul, a divine, spiritual soul. So the third The third step was that after the soul entered the body, the person started to walk, to talk, to understand. And that's how the person started to become alive. As we continue, we have in the book of Kohelet, King Solomon, which is a part of the Tanakh. The Tanakh has 24 books altogether. One of them is the book of Kohelet. And this is the description of death, how a person dies. King Solomon writes, Vayashuv ha'afar al haaretz, the sand will return to the ground, keshe'aya, as it was in the beginning, and the spirit will return to God because He is the one who gave it. So exactly the opposite transaction. First, Hashem created us from the sand, then He put the soul, then we became alive. The reverse transaction is, when you see a person is not alive, that means the soul, the spirit left the body fell on the ground, later it will be buried, and the sand will go back to where it was taken from. As I explained in one of my lectures here, when we received the written Torah is basically 1% of Judaism. 99% is the oral laws. You cannot make one step without the oral Torah, without the Talmud, without the Gemara, without the Halacha, without the Zohar, without all the secrets, the Midrashim. There's no way to understand one verse in the Torah without the oral instructions that God gave us separately. It wasn't written in the same book. And in the oral Torah we find all the secrets of Judaism. And one of them is, the Gemara says in Masechet Nida, page 31, 3 partners are in the creation of mankind: God, His father, and His mother. His father contribute the white stuff. From that stuff that comes from the man, from this DNA of the man, what is created? The bones, the ligaments, the nails, the brain inside the head, the white inside the eyes. The mother gives the red stuff, and from that stuff, the flesh, the skin, the hair, the pupils inside the eyes, that they all made from the DNA of the mother. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives the spirit, the soul, the image of the face, the ability to see, the ability to hear, the ability to talk, the ability to walk, the wisdom, the intelligence. Basically all the spiritual traits that we have comes from God. And the Gemara explained, when the time for a person came to leave the world, comes God and take his share and leaves what the mother and father contributed. And obviously there's not that much you can do with that. So this is the description of the creation of man based on the written Torah, based on the oral Torah. As I said yesterday, there are 613 commandments in the Torah. It's not a coincidence that the number is not an even number. You may think that God would give 500, 600, 700, an even number. Why He chose 613? Reviewing the human body shows us something very interesting. The human body is a combination of 248 organs, 365 ligaments. For every organ in the body of a human being, there is one mitzvah taseh, a positive mitzvah. 248 positive mitzvot, 248 organs in the human body, one for one. And 365 ligaments, 365 restrictions. In the Torah, each restriction connects to a ligament. According to Kabbalah, when the soul exits the body, the Ari HaKadosh writes, and his student Rav Chaim Vital, that as soon as the person go up to the court of heaven, before his trial begin, the trial takes 1 year, that's why we say Kaddish on the deceased people for 1 year to help them in a trial. The kids say for their parents Kaddish, or sometimes unfortunately parents say for their kids. But this is to help our relative in their situation up there. So the Ari says that as soon as the soul comes up, before anything was said, by looking at the image of the soul, you can see which organs and ligaments are missing. Which means those parts who are missing, the person did not fulfill his obligation that connects to that organ or that ligament. Unfortunately, some people, it's almost the entire image is missing. The puzzle is 613 pieces, and almost all of them are missing. Some people, most of that are there. Depends what you did in your life, based on the free choice. So 3 of the 600 commandments, 3 are very unique. This is restriction from God to the Jewish nation. The Goyim are allowed. There's no restriction to the Goyim in the 7 laws that they're obligated to keep. From the 613 laws, 3 of them is a serious a warning for the Jews not to disturb the deceased people. Do not communicate with them. Don't ask them questions. Don't disturb them to come back to this physical world. As an intelligent people, we understand something right away. Even though right now I do not know how to call my grandfather from the upper world and to ask him question, it's okay, nothing happened. So we'll worry about it later. So even though we don't know, even though we do not know how to communicate with the dead people, one thing we do know right away: if God bothered to put in His Torah 3 verses to warn us not to do it, that means it's possible. That's first thing we understand. There's a way to call the dead people and talk to them and receive information from them. That's one thing. The second thing we understand is that these people that we thought that they are dead, they're really not dead. They just moved to another place. If you're able to call them back and speak to them, that means they are not sent, as we may think. They are existing somewhere. Where, we don't know yet. We'll soon understand. But that means they are somewhere. So that means if somebody lost his father or husband or wife or whatever, and think, oh, I'll never be able to see him, don't be so sure. It could be very fast that you'll be able to meet again and to see each other, just because the person is somewhere. He has no permission to be here yet anymore, but sooner or later we are able to see our relatives. Soon you're going to see what I mean. Okay, I'm skipping some because I know we don't have the full time to finish this lecture. If you're interested to watch the entire lecture, go into my website, divineinformation.com. I have it there. And one of the things the Torah says that before the baby is born, 9 months, an angel is teaching him the entire Torah. Just when the time for him to come out, he tap on his top lip and makes him forget the entire Torah. There's room in the front. There's 4 chairs right here. Maybe if they want to come in. Okay, so once the person comes out, he doesn't remember all the Torah that he learned inside, inside his mother womb. But I have news for you. About 45 years ago, there was one person in Israel, a baby that was born, and then he was 3 years old. He started to say pages of Gemara by heart. He knows the entire Torah by heart, the entire Gemara by heart, little kid. They took him to a Rebbe, to an Admor of Hasidim, 45 minutes in a room, and he makes him forget everything. You know, I asked many questions why they did it. There was an opportunity to make a revolution in the whole world. Imagine if CNA, they show a little baby that says pages of Gemara, Amarava, Amarabaye, Ve'atanya. Imagine a little boy. He said words of Torah until 400 years ago, until the Taz. Taz is one of the poskim. From then on, he did not mention anyone besides one, the Ben Ish Chai. Rav Yehuda Tzadka, as one of the chief rabbis in Israel, was inside the room. So they invited all the important rabbis. He told his student, one of them told me, that he did not mention anybody in the last 400 years except one. Whatever that means, I don't know. But the fact that he knew not only the Gemara and the Torah, he also knew the Rambam, he knew Shulchan Aruch, he knew rabbis that lived a few hundred years ago by heart, everything. They made him forget. I asked why, because they didn't want to create problems, because there's all kinds of disagreements in a Jewish halacha to go by a little baby to decide which rabbi was right, which rabbi was not so right. To create problems, so they made him, plus it's Ayin Arayin Vav. That's not the point right now. But the point is that somebody was born and he remembered everything. And that's very interesting. Let's move on. There are 5 ways to prove life after death. 5 ways. The first one is clinical death, out-of-body experience. The second one, called seance, communication with the dead people by using a medium, a third party, a middleman. The third way to prove it is reincarnations. Souls who are transferred from one body to another. The fourth way, it's called regression, hypnotizing people and receiving information from their past, sometimes before they were born, from their previous life. In this life, they are able to describe where they used to live in their previous life. We're going to see some examples. And the last one, it's called dibukim. Dibuk means that when a person like us, which is normal, has one soul inside his body. That's his test in life. However, in very rare occasions, very, very rare, it can happen once or twice, maybe in a whole generation, that you see something like this. A soul that is already dead, which means is not in this world, which is in space in the world, can enter a body of a living person when it wasn't welcome. He just didn't ask permission. He just entered and he's hiding inside. I don't want to tell you from what he's hiding, because I was instructed not to scare anyone. So I'm trying to keep, I promise. But he's hiding from something. He's hiding from something, and he doesn't want to go out. So you have to beg him to come out. How do you beg him to come out? You have to bribe him. How do you bribe a soul to leave a body? You promise him that you read Mishnah for him, you say Kaddish for him, you make a learning for him, and not always it's working. Sometimes they agree after a few days to leave the body, and that's it. But while they're inside the body, you're going to find something very, very interesting. You're going to find two individuals controlling the mouth, which means if it's a man and a woman, right now I'm speaking with the voice of a man, and a minute later you see me going like this, and then a voice of a woman comes from my throat. The lips doesn't even move. It's like speaking from inside. And a woman sometimes can speak in a different language, different accent. It could be two men. When one of them take control of the mouth, it's like two captains flying the same plane. When the Arab ones takes over, he wants to kidnap the plane to Iran. When the Jew takes the control, he wants to turn the plane to Israel. When one's sitting on a chair, the other one is eliminated. You understand the idea? So when one is speaking, the other one is becoming obsolete for a few minutes. This is how it works. And there are some interesting books that were written about it by the student of Chafetz Chaim, Rav Wasserman. They went to take the book from a little girl. They got the man out of her body, and so forth and so on. I don't think we'll have time to show that, but at least you understand the concept. Now, according to science, it's not clear when the person is described as a dead person. It's not clear 100%, I say that. But everybody agrees that if you have 5 symptoms together, then there's no doubt, according to all opinions, that this person is described as a complete dead person. What are the 5 symptoms? 1 is there is no pulse in the heart. The heartbeat is not working. Second, there's no brain waves. The brain stopped to receive information and it's not working. There is no oxygen coming from the lung into the rest of the body. So that's the 3rd symptom. The 4th, later, after a few minutes, you begin to see drop in the body temperature. That's the 4th symptom. And the 5th symptom is that the body becomes completely numb. You can burn a person with a cigarette, he won't make a beep. Later, when he comes back to life, he's going to scream about all the burnings. But while the soul is out of the body does not feel anything. You can burn him, you can electrocute him, he doesn't feel, he doesn't make a beep. Later, when the soul returns back into the body, he begins to look, he says, what happened to me? Wow, it's painful, I'm suffering. Which means, as long as the soul is in the body, the nerve system and everything is functioning. Even when the soul leaves for a minute and comes back, that minute the person is really dead. It's not just he fainted or something, because a fainted person, when you burn him, he feels it. Okay? So that's the 5 symptoms. I'm going to show you now some of the top parapsychologists in the world. As you can see, I don't think one of them is even Jewish. So don't suspect me that I bribed those scientists to say that life after life exists. They do not know Judaism, they do not know religion, they are all goyim. And they are very, very well known all over the world. They are well respected. Just that you know, until 25 years ago, if a person said that he believes in life after death, they looked at him as very not normal. Today it's exactly the opposite. Today a parapsychologist that will say there's no life after death, nobody will pay attention to him. Nobody will pay attention to this person. Why? Because everybody already know by now life after life for sure exists. So let's see. One of the most famous one, Dr. Raymond Moody, he is a psychiatrist from Virginia University, interviewed 150 people who died and came back to life, and he published many books that was translated to 30 different languages. He became a very wealthy person from all the books he wrote about his experiments and research, and he's one of the most famous ones. Carlos Osis, a psychologist, American. He interviewed 877 doctors that testified about clinical death of their patients. He published many books and articles. Dr. Kenneth Ring, a psychologist from Connecticut University, in 2 years he investigated 102 cases of clinical death and published some books and articles. Dr. George Ritchie, the president of Richmond Academy for Medicine, is the head of the psychiatrist department in Towers Hospitals, published many research about what he found, and the most famous in the whole world, #1 parapsychologist in the whole world, Dr. Elizabeth Kovler-Ross from Detroit, a world-known psychiatrist. She investigated for more than 20 years, more than 1,000 cases of people who died and came back to life. She published many famous books and articles. She's well known as the top in the business. Dr. Morris Rowling, a cardiologist from Tennessee, he interviewed 300 patients. Dr. Fred Schoonmaker, cardiologist from Denver, more than 1,000 cases. And there's many, many other people. Let's move on. According to the Gallup agency in the United States, they do surveys. More than 30 million people in the world reported clinical death, out-of-body experience. In the United States alone, you have more than 8 million people that reported clinical temporary death. Now, when you hear 30 million people in the world, that's not that much compared to 6 billion. It's not that much. You have to remember that most of the people who has it don't even bother to report it. They were dead for 3 minutes, for 2 minutes, for 5 minutes. Then they came back to life. They tell their relatives, their friends, and it's over. They don't go to the doctor to be examined. That's most people. Those people bother to go and to report and to describe what they saw when they were dead. Then let's see what are the elements that all the deceased people are describing when they come back to life. The first thing that everybody describes, that as soon as I died, the soul came out of the body was on the floor, if it was an accident or heart attack, whatever it was in a hospital. First thing that happened, the person feels that he flies in the air like a piece of paper. He's flying right above his body, he sees himself, and he's very surprised because he wasn't ready for such a thing. Then he sees the doctor coming with the electric shocks to the chest, or with all the equipment, and the equipment is beeping, and his relatives are crying and everything. But at the same time, he's above everyone, and he sees everything that takes place around the body, ambulance, police, whatever. Some of those people, they reported that they were trying to pick up the phone to dial 911, which is an emergency. But since there's no more body, no material, material can move material. Spiritual does not move material. It goes on empty. So they were trying to pick up the phone. Like one guy put his hand in the aquarium to give food for the fish. There was a wire there. He got electrocuted. He fell. He died. There's nobody in the house to call the ambulance. So he was trying to pick up the phone. Later he came back to life. I was trying to grab that phone and dial, but it wasn't working. Why? Because you don't have your body with you. The body can move. When you don't have the body, you're only a soul. You're an energy, a spiritual energy. And you cannot move anything. So the first thing, the soul is above the body. The second thing, the soul enters a tunnel. And that tunnel, in the beginning, is very, very dark. And later, as you fly inside the tunnel, you begin to see light. And at one point, the lights become very, very bright. But you're still not blinded by it. You are able to look into the light, but this is a very amazing spiritual feelings, that you feel that you're flying inside like a valley. It's a tunnel with mutual circles. You're flying in the middle, and you see the lights becoming stronger by the minute. Then they see that they are able to communicate with the light, not through talking like we have in this world with a voice, through telepathy. Which means whatever you want to say, it's already been said through thoughts. And whatever the light wants to translate, to send to you, it's also you understand right away. So it's a different way of communication. You don't need to talk. Before we talk, we think. A second before we say something, we first thought. That thought is already translated over there to words. And the same thing over there. So it's very interesting. Now remember, this is Jews, non-Jews, all over the world, different culture, educated people, ignorant people, doesn't matter, male, female, all over. Then, the next thing they see, they begin to see their relatives and friends that passed away already. Cousins, friends, neighbor, people that they recognize that they're already not in this world, they're flying around them. They see all their images. Not only that they see their images, they look exactly like the day of their death. So if somebody has an accident and his shirt was all bleeding, they see him with that image, that his shirt still have drops of blood. Or if somebody didn't have, let's say, parts of his body, so they look at them, they recognize them right away exactly as they used to be here. Then they begin to see all their lights in snaps, in fast pictures. It's not a regular video like we see here, but it's very similar because the pictures are so fast. It's millions of pictures, one after the other, in such speed that obviously here a brain cannot see millions of pictures in a minute or two and remember all of them. This is in the right chronological order, from the time he was a baby crawling on a rug until he's 40 or 50 in the time of the death. Every second of his life moved in very fast pictures. They see their entire life. All of them describe sharp, very clear pictures from the day I was born until the day I died. Then, all of them, with no exception, are able at the same time that they're going through the tunnel, and at the same time that they hear and they see all their life, at the same time they are very connected to the emergency room, to the surgery room. So whatever happened in a hospital, at the same time, later they are going to report and to describe what happened to them in the tunnel and what happened to them in a hospital, which though it's two different places, but they are able to describe both of them at the same time, which is very interesting. The doctors do not understand how people that were dead with all the 5 symptoms, according to the medical world, if a person has these 5 symptoms that I mentioned before for more than 6 minutes, he's completely dead and he's going to be brain damaged for the rest of his life. If he wake up after 6 minutes, most of his memory cells are erased, they are then permanently damaged, there's no way to restore them, and that's basically what's supposed to be. However, you know that every rule has an exception to the rule. The creator of the world made rules. There are a lot of rules. But once in a while, you see an exception to the rule. Like, for every million people who are able to see, one is blind. Or I don't know, 1 to 10 million. I don't know the rates. But why there's a blind person? For us to see the blind person, to see how much he suffers without seeing anything, to appreciate what God gave us. Same thing, legs. Nobody appreciates his legs. You take it for granted. I have legs, big deal. Once you see a guy on a wheelchair, he cannot even open the door to the bank at 2 o'clock at night when it's snowing. I'm describing you something that happened to me a few years ago. The guy was waiting 15 minutes freezing until somebody will come and open the door for him, that he will get some money from the ATM machine. So he cannot do anything because it's very hard to push the heavy door when you sit on a wheelchair. Plus to go back, it's very difficult. So when you see it, you appreciate your legs. This is rules and exception to the rule. Here, we find people that were dead for more than 6 minutes and they come back to life completely normal. Even after 40 minutes, one guy in India for 2 days he was dead. Completely dead. No symptom, no pulse, no breathing, no nothing. 2 days later he came back to life. It's hard to understand how can something like this happen. They have no answers. We'll soon understand how it happens. But here is some of the things that they describe. I was up there. I saw how they work on my body with the shocks on my chest. I saw my body jumping on a bed. At that moment, I fell heavily back into my body and woke up. Another woman, I knew I'm dying, but there's nothing I could do about it. Nobody heard me. I came out of my body, there's no doubt about it. I saw my body on a surgery room. I heard the doctors giving up on my life. I felt horrible because I didn't want to die. Another person, I was out of my body, but I knew clearly I can either remain there or I can return back into the body. Then, as I said before, they are describing that they're flying in a dark valley, in a tunnel, and it says it's feeling of peace and happiness. and as mutual circles that you fly right in the center. There was a huge light, shining, bright, very spiritual. I felt love that I never experienced in my life here. The love that I had to that light, the spiritual feeling that I had, I never had in my whole life in this world. When I was in front of that light, I felt so good, I did not want to return. Others say that there was a line that everybody understands, it's clear, that once you cross that line, there's no chance to return. But as long as you did not cross that line, maybe you return, maybe not, and everyone hoping to go to say goodbye to the relatives, you know how it is. But the line is a very clear understanding. You cross it, there's no return. Then I saw a huge light. In the beginning it wasn't so strong, later it became strong. It's hard to describe. It was covering me from all over, but did not blind me. I saw the surgery room. When the light asked me if I'm ready to die, I had a feeling like I'm talking to a person. But it wasn't a person, it was the light that spoke. I knew that the light knows that I'm not ready to die. I had a feeling like I'm being tested. I felt very good. Confidence and love, hard to describe. All of them, as I said, described their relatives and friends that started to come, like showing them the way. Then, some of them like welcoming them with blessing. There are all people who I knew from my life and passed away. I saw my grandmother, I saw a girl that I knew from school, I saw their face, I felt their presence right next to me. I felt that all these friends and relatives, they are flying around me. They all came to accept me. I saw my friend in my brain, not in my physical body, but clearly his face, his hands, his legs, everything. All of them testified that they saw their entire life, as I said, in pictures one after the other. And this is one of the goyim, one Gentile, this is what he says. I was very embarrassed for many things that I saw. They showed me everything I did wrong. I thought to myself, I wish I would have not done those things. I wish I can go back in time and correct them. I felt major disappointment that I did not do anything in my life. I did not achieve anything in my life. I do not know anything in my life. I did not complete one thing in my life. This is a goy. A Jew has a much bigger responsibility in life than a goy. You should know it. This is a goy that already felt that his entire life was a waste of time. And just to give us an understanding what's going on here. Then I'm skipping some of the things, as you can see. Dr. Elizabeth Kovler-Ross, she described that people who parts of their body was chopped off, like they lost their arm in an accident or their legs, they described that when they left their body, they saw their image, spiritual image, complete, with the legs, with the hands. So as I explained before, the soul has the same exact image like the body. If you have blue eyes, your soul have blue eyes. If you have black hair, your soul have black hair. But it's not real. It's like an image, like seeing an image on a water or in a mirror. And when you look at your body, for instance, if a person doesn't have an arm, then you may think that the soul also has only one arm. No, but when you look at the soul, it's complete. So where is the cover? The cover is off. Imagine the body as a plastic doll, right? And inside you have a spiritual thing that looks exactly the same. When you cut the arm of that doll, the spiritual thing's still there because you cannot cut it. It's not physical. There's nothing to cut. You can grab it. You can do whatever you want. It's never going to be cut. Cannot be damaged. It's an energy. So when the arm is missing, doesn't mean the soul is missing. It's just the cover. That's why sometimes people who lost their arm, it's very common, they say that it's itching them. And there's nothing to itch. He doesn't have an arm, but he feels that it's itching. That's explaining why, because the soul is still there. The feeling is all come from the soul, as I said. So, the most interesting things that you can say so far is that blind people that cannot see anything, when they died and come back to life, they describe everything in colors. What is it like? Imagine this big room as a body. And imagine that I am the soul, and right now I'm inside the body. That's the room. So, the soul has two eyes. This is one eye, that door, and this is one eye. Two eyes. I can see through the eyes only forward. I cannot see anything there. It's all black. But if you take me out of the room, you put me out there, which means the soul came out of the body, the soul has no limitation to look only forward. It can see all around with no limitation. No memory limitation, no hearing limitation, no seeing limitation. It sees everything. So this is called the blind person that his blinds are off. That means he cannot see anything because it's blocked. It's like putting two hands on your eyes. Once you remove the hands, you can see everything. So the eyes are always see. The soul always see. But sometimes there's a limit, something that blocks the view. So they all describe the blind people. When they come back to life, they describe the doctor. You have gray hair, you have gold glasses. The nurse, she's that. They describe the whole room. The furniture, everything. How they see, they're blind. So obviously the soul came out of the body, they were able to see, and now the soul is back in the body and they cannot see again. But the most interesting thing here, that people who were born blind, somebody that is born blind, from the day he was born, he never saw any lights in his life. How many years it will take us to describe to him the color blue? How many years? Forever. You can sit 1,000,000 years and tell him, blue it's like the sky. What is the sky? It's like the ocean. Not in Belgium, but it's like the ocean in Israel or in Miami. And say, I don't know what's ocean. What do you mean? Well, he has no idea. Why? The computer never received even once the color blue. He doesn't know how to recognize it. It's like putting Hebrew into an American computer. It's no Hebrew. The computer doesn't know what you're talking about. So it's very interesting. When they die, these people that are born blind, they never saw in this life any color. So they obviously don't know how to recognize it. But when the soul goes out of the body and they are coming back to life, now they're describing in colors. How do they know colors? From their previous life. We're soon going to see what reincarnation is. So once the soul comes out, the soul remember, 100 years ago when I lived in Poland, I was actually seeing. In this life I'm blind. But over there I used to see. So now he's able to describe what's going on. Let's see. I don't have a speaker here. So I doubted, if we're going to be able to hear it. We'll do our best. If it will work, it will work. What did I do? One second. Just bear with me for another minute. I'm going to show you now a video of a person who died and came back to life and was interviewed on prime television in the United States. I just hope we'll be able to hear it. If we don't, I was expecting that the place here will have a speaker that we can connect, but we don't. So just one more second. Here. What happened? No, the video doesn't work on top of everything. So we're going to have to skip it, unfortunately, but this is just briefly for you to understand that this is a person who had an accident and his body was smashed completely. After he was dead for about half an hour, one of the firefighters came and saw, he cut the car and he took him out. They put him in a bag, in a body bag. It was inside the bag. They closed the zipper, everything, and then he came back to life and started to describe what he saw. We'll move on. Maybe the other film will work, hopefully. Now let's see what the Torah has to say about everything I said so far. Now remember, the Torah is 3,320 years ago. 3,320 years ago. The Talmud is about 2,000 years old. About. Everything that I'm going to show you, it's at least 2,000 years old. Way before the parapsychologists, way before what we discovered in the last 25 years. Let's see what the Gemara has to say. Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yoshua, was sick and his spirit came out. when he came back to life, his father asked him, what did you see in the upper world, in the world of the truth? He told him, I saw everything is the opposite. I saw people that are here are important, over there they are nothing. And people that nobody pays attention to here, they are very important over there. So he told him, my son, you saw the truth. Over here it's the opposite, not over there. Then he said, I also heard an echo, an announcement, that every Jew that comes here with Torah knowledge, he is the luckiest one, which means he is ready to come to the next life. Then Rabbi Krospadai, they thought he died, and later he came back to life and started to describe is the elevation of his soul to the upper worlds and the trial that he had, which means he already went far. Most of them do not get to the trial yet, but some of them did get to the trial. There's one guy in Israel, his name is Avi Hajani, very famous case. He was a very big criminal in a gang in a city called Pardes Katz in Israel. There's a lot of criminals there, gangs. So he was stabbed with a big kitchen knife. He was living with his father. His father was on the first floor. One night he comes home, somebody was hiding behind the stairs. As soon as he came into the building, he stabbed him 3 holes directly inside the heart. 3 big holes inside the heart. Obviously he screamed, Abba! His father heard that somebody screaming. Then they opened the door. He saw him with his brother. They took him to the hospital, to Bellinson. It's in Petach Tikva. It's about 20 minutes ride. They went on sidewalk. They went against traffic. You know, you want to save your son. You don't have time to stop in red light. So when they got to the hospital, one doctor was leaving. When the doctor saw all the shirt is bleeding, he knew something with the heart. He went right back. He got dressed. They took him to the emergency room, and he was dead for 43 minutes. They already were ready to move him into a refrigerator. He was covered already with the sheet, ready to move him into the refrigerator. Then he started to move his heads. The nurses got very scared, and later he came back to life. About a few months after the case, he recuperated completely, and they sent a video cassette to all the hospitals in the world for the doctor not to rush to put people in a refrigerator. There are things that we don't know how to explain. His case became very famous all over the world. Avi Hajani. Why I'm telling you this story? Because you know somebody in Israel that his name is Avi, nobody ever that his name is Avraham, nobody ever call him Avraham. They either call him Avi or Avram. But Avraham with a hey, nobody calls him. Even the teacher that tried to be proper in a class, Avram, no Avraham. So he said the first thing started, he hear Avraham, loud. He said you freeze, you feel like your blood is freezing. So right away he started to see his entire life that he's a criminal, he's doing bad things. So after his trial began, they gave him a chance to come back to life. When he came back to life, he started to become religious. He put tefillin, he tried to keep Shabbat. He stopped with the gang for a few months, but you know how it is. 3 months later, he started to forget and went back to business. Next time, he fell from a construction site. They went to steal things from a building. There was no rails yet. No rails, because they're building the building. He fell from the 2nd floor on a sand pile. You know, they have the sand pile, the big sand. Yeah. That's how they build in Israel, with big sand. They mix it with the cement. He fell on his stomach, boom, on the sand. It hits his heart. He got, his heart stopped to work, and he died again. This is the only person that I read about that died twice, and twice got a chance to come back to life. I don't know what was his merit, but the second time he got the point. Today he has long beard, he sits in yeshiva, he lives by now more than 20 years. But he made a tape about what happened to him, and he described all the questions that he was asked. If you are brave enough, I'll tell you where you can get the tape. Now let's see what the Zohar has to say. Kabbalah. When the soul exits this world, it goes up to the cave, what we call Me'arat HaMachpelah, where Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov is buried there, and Adam, and it says this is the gate of the next world. So remember that they say they went to a tunnel, then all 3 days after the death, the soul is flying above the body. And the soul is hoping maybe it can return back into the body. 7 days After the death, the soul is going back and forth from the house to the grave. Now you understand why we see Shiva? Why we see Shiva? Because that person is keep coming to the house. Next time, God forbid, when one person's fathers died and he left him a lot of money, don't rush to count the money. Wait a week, because that father will be above you and see you behaving. You don't want to embarrass yourself. Most people think, my father died, let's call the lawyer. An hour after the funeral, he calls the lawyer to protect his interest. But I'm sure that the father won't be so happy to see it. So this is just to show you that the soul still have permission to travel from the grave back into the house for 7 days. Then Rabbi Dosa says, Ki lo irani ha'adam v'chai. A person, Hashem says in the Torah, a person cannot see me and stay here. After he saw me, he has to die. The holiness of seeing God in this life, you cannot bear it. But in the next life, everybody must see him. שנאמר, לפניו יכרעו כל יורדי עפר. The Torah says that everyone who comes down to the next life bow down on his knees in front of Hashem. We'll see what does it mean. The Zohar says in Parashat Kedoshim, there's nothing more difficult to the soul more than the separation from the body. And a person does not die until he sees the light of God. Out of desire to that light, his soul exits the body to accept the light of Hashem. This is all these things that I told you, it's at least 2,000 years old, yes? When the time comes for a person to die, his soul comes out of his body and he sees the spirits of Hashem, the Shekhinah. Out of happiness to go towards it, he is coming out. If he is righteous, he has the merit to stick to that light for a longer time. And if not, later the light disappears and he stays to mourn on the separation from his body. When at time of death, a person gets permission to see all the things he could not see and understand in his life. You understand why this girl didn't want to marry you in the last minute. You understand why you missed the plane. You understand why a minute before they knocked down the twins, you just came out and your friend didn't. You understand why, God forbid, your spouse died in a young age. You understand everything. Right now you don't know. You think maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe we made a mistake, maybe that's, maybe it was supposed to be. Everything is going to be clear. You understand why you're handicapped, why, you have this sickness, why your kids have these problems. Everything will be clear. Right now we don't understand almost anything. But over there we have permission to see and understand everything in our life. What we got saved from, everything we'll understand. The next life is wide. No borders, no walls, no ceilings, no nothing. It's open, unlimited. Huge light. That is nothing like the light in this world. This is, as you can see, right in front of you. When a righteous person passed away, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to all the righteous people who already passed away, go and welcome him. And they come to him and say, Avo Shalom, come in peace. And when a person died, he gets permission to see his relatives and friends from this world, and he recognizes them. Remember what all these people describe? They do not know Zohar and Gemara. They just describe what they saw. But the Torah already told you that when you're going to die one day, you're going to see your friends and relatives. And that's what the Torah says. And he recognized them in their image as they lived in this world. If he's righteous, they are all very happy for him, because they know he's going to have a happy continuation. And they walk with him. That's what the Zohar says. In the Gemara says, when Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was the president of Israel 2,000 years ago in the destruction of the second temple, moments before he closed his eyes permanently, he told his student, prepare a chair for the king Chizkiyahu. He lived 600 years before him. He is coming here to accept me. He saw King Chizkiyahu moments before he closed his eyes. One of my students in Yeshiva, I was teaching in Gemara a few years ago, his father passed away. But before his father passed away, mamash minutes before he passed away, they had a neighbor from one floor below them. They in the third floor, and the neighbor, this woman, lived one floor below them. So when the father, mamash moments before he died, he started to tell him, Yitzchak, what Miriam is doing here? So which Miriam? He said, the neighbor. She's here, I see her going up. So he said, no, Abba, you don't feel good, you're hallucinating. It's not. He said, no, I'm telling you, I see Miriam right here. An hour later, after he passed away, they saw that the ambulance came already before they even called the ambulance. I went down and said, what's going on? They said, we didn't come for this person, we came for this woman. He saw her spirit going up, but he was already on the way out also. His soul came out and her soul came out in moments difference, and he already saw her, and obviously they didn't see it, but he saw it. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea what's going on. When a person passed away, he sees all his actions in his life, and they tell him in a court of heaven, do you confirm that this is what you did in that day? Do you confirm it? And he say, yes, absolutely, I confirm it. When the time comes to pass away, they say, sign on everything that you did, and he writes and he signs. You should always remember the Torah say, what's above you. There's the eye who watch over you all the time, the eyes of God. There's a ear who listens to you, and everything you do is being registered in a book of God. Everything you say in front of the dead body, he knows. He hears until they cover him with sand. The Gemara continue and say, there's another opinion in a Talmud, not only until you cover him with sand, until the worms finish to eat the body. As long as the body is still in a grave, he still hear everybody who speaks in his grave completely. Once it's over, let's say after a month or so, no more communication to this world. Amar Rav le Rav Shmuel bar Shilat. It's two of the Amoras in the Gemara. They lived about 1700 years ago. This is what he says. In the time of my death, please make sure you make me a good eulogy. Eulogy is hesped, when you say all the good things that the deceased person did in his life. Where this custom come from? From the Torah. He said, make me a very respectable eulogy. Why? Because I'm going to be there, above you, and hear everything you say. So the Torah already told us way before the parapsychology started to investigate and document everything. My friend, when I'll die, I'll be right above you and hear everything you say about me. I'm skipping some. Let's see what the ways to communicate with the dead people. There are many different ways. One way, there are some people that are extra spiritual. They can fall into trance by relaxing their thoughts, and they have fainted. And then through that, you're able to tell them, I want to speak to Ploni Almoni, to this person who passed away. And then they begin to say what that person is telling them to say. So that means you came to speak to somebody who's already dead 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, whatever it is, and they tell you what he's saying. How do you know they're not lying? First of all, what do they have to gain by that? That's question number one. But besides the point, they're giving you personal information. If a woman wanted to speak to her husband about where he was hiding the money, let's say. Where is the money? I never found it. You told me you put it over here, and I looked around the tree, and it wasn't there. So now this person could be a goy, not necessarily a Jew or something. It's a spiritual person. It's called trance. He said that it's not in that tree, you fool. It's in the other side. And that's how people get information. There are many cases about the will that people communicate with the dead people, and they say that I put a different will. You didn't use my real will. The real will was in my coat, in that closet. You open it, it's inside, you see that I made a new will. And then they went and they saw that really the other will didn't make sense. How come? But that was the real will. So this is just to give you an example. There's another way to communicate with the dead people through a medium. The medium is putting his head down and he's holding a pen. But he's not holding a pen like this, that you write. He's holding the pen in a very strange way for a few minutes, loose. And then the pen begins to move. And the pen starts to write. Writes. You see that somebody else moves the pen. And once they're finished, you see what he wrote. For instance, here is a famous case. This is a case of American woman, Rosemary Brown. She has no knowledge in music at all. She never learned music in her whole life. But she's writing music from Chopin, Brahms, Bach, Beethoven, and all the greatest musicians. How does she do it? She communicates with her souls, with her spirits, and they give her the tavim, how do you say, musical notes. Yeah, and she writes it, and she wins all kinds of awards with her music. Emma Conti, an Italian woman, she has spiritual powers. She received music from Emily Dickinson. She's a songwriter. She died already a long time ago. She won 46 awards for her music that she writes, and she never even went to high school. She's a complete ignorant girl from a farm. And she writes music, and every time she goes on a competition, she wins, and she said, it's not me. It's this woman, Emily Dickinson. She moves my hand, and she writes the music. One woman is Eileen Gart and Pfeiffer. Another woman, her name is Pfeiffer. In 1889, 7 groups of investigators followed her. They locked her in a room. They didn't give her access to any newspapers, to nothing, and they investigated her because she was able to give information from dead people. And they went and checked one by one of the things she was saying. She was right about everything. And one of the ways that she communicated with a man, he says that he's the captain of a boat in England, that as he was taking off, it was an airboat, not like an airplane, but not exactly like an airplane. While he was taking off, it broke to 2 and all the people died. So the captain started to explain how it happened. And it was completely different than what the investigation showed. And then they went and rechecked that plane, and they saw that everything he said really happened. The oil exploded, they added an extension in the middle of that, the plane couldn't take off, it was too heavy, and it broke, and he described everything, and he's already dead, this captain, and she gave all the information. But it gets much better. When Eileen Gart was waking up from the medium, from the seance that she was doing, she was listening to the recordings, and she didn't know that she was saying it. She was listening to what she said, but she's not in a conscious when she said all this. Later, she see that she spoke as a captain, she spoke as a man, and in that case, it was October 5, 1930, when this airspace was a British one, was crashed 1930, 80 years ago. Let's talk a little bit about reincarnation. As we know, the Torah tells us that the soul is eternal. The soul will never die. The soul is an integral part of God Himself. That's why it can never die. And according to the Zohar, to the Kabbalah, the Kabbalah speaks a lot about people who are coming back in different bodies to correct all the damages that they made in previous lives. And as the Ramchal, one of the greatest Kabbalists 250 years ago, he writes, he said that the Almighty, the brilliant Almighty, made that the soul will come few times in different bodies and will be able to correct all the damages that it made in previous lives. But in the end of all the reincarnations in the future to come, everything will be calculated, what a person did in all his lifetimes, and that's going to be his final state. Who are you? Righteous, wicked, mediocre, and so forth. It will be a combination of everything. And 500 years ago, an unusual person was born. It was special. There were many great rabbis in history, but in the last 2,000 years at least, nobody was like him. His name was the Ari HaKadosh, Rav Yitzchak Luria Ashkenazi. He lived 500 years ago in Tzfat. He came from Egypt to Tzfat when he was a kid. And he was able to look at the person right away without hypnotizing him, to tell you all his previous life. He looks at you, he says, in your previous life you used to be such and such. And then in a life before you lived in that country, and this is what you did. And the reason God put you here is because you made a big sin, and now you have to do this and this and this to correct that sin. He used to see everything. There are many different reincarnations. Reincarnations are not only in human body like we have. We're still lucky, we have a chance to correct. Some people are being reincarnated in raw materials, in rocks, some in fruits, in trees, some in flies, in insects, in animals, in dogs, in snakes. There's different reincarnations. When he used to walk with his student Rabbi Chaim Vital in a forest or in a field, he used to look at the rock and say, you see this rock? There's a butcher who used to sell not kosher meat in that town. 30 years ago he died, and he is reincarnated in this rock. And he was telling him his name. And he was writing it down, and then after he separated from him, he used to go with his students to that town and start asking, there was any butcher story 30 years ago, 40 years ago? Say, yeah. And there was any problem, any incident with him? Yeah, he got caught that he's selling not kosher meat, and the rabbis, prosecute him. And they say the whole story, everything like he says. He was able to see everything. It's very interesting. But we don't need him right now. We're going to see what our scientists are proving. Because I know you believe the scientists more, you believe the rabbi. So let's go by the scientists, what they have to say. But before we go to them, Rav Yehuda Aryeh Mimodina, a rabbi and a doctor in Italy, in Venice, hundreds of years ago. He did not believe in reincarnation. Did not believe in it. Just when he was older, his neighbor called him that the baby is dying. The baby was 6 months old. And she said to the rabbi, Rabbi, come read Tehillim, say Shema Israel, for the baby is dying. So the rabbi came and he was praying for that baby, and moment before the baby died, he opened his mouth, 6 months old. He doesn't speak Hebrew. He opened his mouth and screamed, Shema Israel, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and he died. It's not only happening by Jews. In Portugal, one baby, also a few months old, before he died, he opened up his mouth and screamed, Viva Juan, something, I forgot the name. And a month later, that person from Portugal became the king of Portugal. He started to scream, to announce, and he died, the baby. It's very interesting things that are happening. Let's see some of the things that the scientists are finding. One of the most famous one in investigating reincarnation is Dr. Ian Stevenson. He's a psychiatrist and a psychologist from Virginia University, and from the 60s he started to investigate until today. He's an old person, he's in his 70s today. He started to investigate, all his life he's basically doing it. He checked 600 cases of reincarnation, and he published 4 books to conclude his research. He's interviewing kids 2.5 years old to 4 years old. Why kids? Because kids still remember their previous life. When they grow up, it's very hard for them already to remember their previous life. But when they're little kids, they're constantly talking about their previous life. And he started to investigate one case after the other. One of the cases that is very famous in the world is an Indian kid from Sri Lanka. His name is Indika Gonreta. He was born in 1962 in Sri Lanka. And when he was a kid, he started to speak about his previous life. Stevenson started to check that case in 1968, 42 years ago. And he published his conclusions in the newspaper ASPR in 1974. Indika started to talk when he was 2 years old. When he became 3 years old, he started to describe himself as a wealthy guy from the city of Matara in Sri Lanka. He said that he has a mansion, he has a Mercedes car, he has elephants, he has a servant. He described his whole life. Stevenson started to see a boy 3 years old describing his previous life. So he went to that city and he saw the mansion is there. And the servant was still there. And the elephants were still there. And he asked him, who was your master? And he told him his name was, he was selling trees. And he found that his name was K.J. Verizinga. That he lived in the city of Matara and died in 1960. So he dies in 1960 and was reborn in 1962. For 2 years he wasn't in this world, the soul. But then he was reincarnated in a body and came back to life. Sometimes, soon you're going to see about hypnotizing the people. It's very interesting. There are periods of gap between one life to another. I'm going to show you what happens soon. Then Shanti was born in Delhi in India. In 1926, when she was 3 years old, she started to tell her parents about what's happening in the city of Mathura. She said that her husband is Kaider Nat. Remember, a 3 years old girl, she comes to her parents, she says she has a husband. They say, who's your husband? She said, Kaider Nat. I died when I gave birth to my son. 10 days after my son was born, I died. When Shanti became 9 years old, she started constantly to talk about her previous life, bright description. Her parents sent a messenger to Mathura, and they found out that this husband that she's talking about, Kaider Nat, is still alive. They wrote him a letter about her daughter and her hallucination, He was very impressed because he knew that his wife really died in the 10 days of the birth and all that. One day he showed up without telling them. He knocks on their door. They open the door. 9 years old girl. Kaider! Her husband from previous life. 9 years old. She remembered him from the previous life. As they met, he started to ask her about his most favorite food. She knew, of course, everything what she used to cook for him. And then she told him, why did you get remarried? Didn't we agree that after my death you will not marry another woman ever? So Kaider said, she's right, we made that agreement. Then they took her to that city. As soon as she got to the train station, she came out of the train, there were hundreds of people there. She recognized her brother-in-law, Gita. Among hundreds of people, she said, Gita is right there. Remember, it's from previous life, from different body. Then the horse took her to the house. She gave the driver direction how to get there. And when they got there, even though they remodeled the house from the outside, she recognized the house. And she knew in every room what's inside before she entered. And then she went to the backyard and there was a tree over there. And she said, give me a shovel. And she started to dig. And then after a minute, she said to him, where is the money that I hid over here? So he was very embarrassed. He said, she's right. There was money over there after she died. I took it. I took it as. She knew everything. So obviously we have people in this world. In Israel it's very, very common by the Druze. Druze is Arabs that are supposedly faithful to Israel. They serve in the army. They're different than the Muslim Arabs. And some Druze lives in Syria. Some of them lives in Israel. Many of the Druze, they remember their previous life. Many of them. One of them is a kid that when he was 7 years old, he was telling his parents, Az, all day, Az. So what is it, Az? They check around if there's anybody named Az, they didn't find anyone. Then one day he comes to say, and he said to his parents, I want you to take me to my wife. So the father said, what do you mean? He said, I'm going to give you direction to where my wife lives. So they go, interesting, they took a cameraman with them. And the cameraman films the whole thing and they put it in Israeli secular national television on prime time, in the news. And you know, they're very anti-religious in Israel. They don't allow anything religious, especially not on prime time. But I was on prime time and I have the whole video. With the Israeli host is going around with them with a camera and a microphone. So they got to one of the Arab villages in Israel. They knock on a door. You see a 44-year-old woman covered from head to toe. She opens the door and she sees a little 7-year-old kid. She says, hi, I'm Adel. She thought it's a candy camera or something, they're making a movie. So he said, no, don't be afraid, I'm your husband from previous life. He was an Israeli soldier in Lebanon. A building collapsed on his head. He was one of many soldiers who died, I think in the 80s it was, in Lebanon, big tragedy. So once he died, right away he got reborn in another body. He died when he was 37, in reserve he was. To add 7 more years that he's alive now in another body, he's 44, like the age of his wife. So he went inside, he went to the attic, he opened the ceiling, and he took a bag full of letters that he used to write to her when he was a soldier in his previous life. Then they took out his serial number. Every Israeli soldier has a necklace with a serial number that you used to be a soldier. So he told them the serial number from his previous life when he was a soldier. Then he showed his uniform in a closet, and then they took the family album. And he started to say, this is Ahmed, this is Mustafa, this is Fatma, this is Saida. He recognized all the cousins, all the relatives from previous life. And he's a little kid. And in the end, they show him how he sits with his cousin, and they sit on the floor somewhere, and they say, remember how we used to go to the nightclub and dance all night? 7 years old. Also, he was a volleyball player, so they took him to a place, and so you see, I was playing with this guy, I was behind. So in the end of that article, they show him standing by his grave and crying. So the woman asked him, what do you feel by standing by your grave? So he said, it's very sad. I look at who I was. I feel very strange. So they remember their previous life without hypnotizing them. However, I'm going to show you there's a way to know, each one of us can know his previous life. Yeah.
So, I mean, these are really rare happenings. I mean, if this is the case, why isn't it more common? You don't read about it in
Yeah, because first of all, in England, there's a very famous case. They show a picture of a woman 20 years old and 5 old people. And in a seminar that I participated 15 years ago, the speaker asked, who is the mother? So everybody pointed at the oldest lady. So they said, no, the 20 years old is the mother. She died. She had an Alzheimer. And she disappeared one day. They didn't know what happened to her. She fell somewhere and died. Once she died, she was born again in another body. When she was 20 years old, she saw an ad in a newspaper that her kids, she recognized the name. They are looking for their mothers by now 20 years. Nobody knows where she is. If anybody can give any message. So she said, I'm the one. She called up that number, and an old man picked up the phone. He said, I'm your mother. You know, a girl 20 years old with British accent. How can she be my mother? She said, wait, don't hang up. Remember how I took you to this doctor? Remember how I bought you this candy? Remember how this? Remember how that? So right away, the old man saw that she really knows everything. Then they asked her 100 questions. The sons and the daughters wrote 100 questions. She answered 97 correctly. 3 she forgot. But 97 she knew which doctor we use, which restaurant we ate, what's the names, what's the order, what hospital, all kinds of personal questions. She knew everything. So now they're taking pictures and this. I'm very, very sad, unless if somebody knows how to make this PowerPoint work. I don't know why it doesn't work, because maybe that's a brand new computer and I have to set something in a setting. But I have a very amazing film. And this film, you know how to do it? Can you try while we do it, because now it's worth it. Let's move on. Okay, now, shh. למה חיביתם את זה? הבנתי. Okay. So now we continue. And I'm going to show you some spiritual pictures, but I want you to understand first, what does it mean, spiritual picture? When God made us, He programmed the lens of our eyes to work in a certain frequency, that we are able to see what He wanted us to see. Not everything God wanted us to see. There are many things in the air, in space, that we cannot see, and it's good that that's the case. Why? Because if we would see what's around us 1 second, we will become crazy immediately from just seeing what's around us. So we cannot see. The Zohar says that if people would see all the things that are in space, they will not be able to ever function again. The Gemara says, how can you see what's around you? The Gemara says. The Gemara said there's a way to see. Okay, good. The Gemara says, you take a female cat, black, a daughter of a female cat, black. Black, the daughter of black, female, the daughter of female, cat, the daughter of another cat. You take out the placenta from a body. You know the placenta, what comes out with a bird after she gives birth? You take the placenta, you burn it. All the liquid evaporates, and then you have ashes. You take that ashes, you put it in a tube, because it's very dangerous to keep it out. You put it on the eyes, you put the eyes, the Gemara say, you open the eyes, you see all the demons, all the angels, all the souls that are reincarnated in space, you see everything. One rabbi did it, and of course right away he became crazy, he couldn't move, he was in bed, and they had to call all the rabbis to stand by his bed morning and evening, days after days, to pray for him until he became okay. God didn't want us to see it because it would ruin our free choice. When you see what's going on out there, you understand right away. There's no test anymore. See, everybody would run to the yeshiva. You would run all the way from here to Bnei Brak on the water. You won't need to ask direction. Everybody will find the yeshivot. Right? The Rosh Yeshiva will have a much easier life. You won't have to ask people, come, join our kollel. Hundreds of thousands of Jews standing online begging, I'll give you my Mercedes, I'll give you my house, just accept me. We're not there yet. But let me show you what it means. Since the eye is working in a certain speed, we cannot see it. But the lens of the camera works in a different speed, and also the video camera. Sometimes when you take pictures of people, the camera detects things in space that you didn't see when you took the picture. So I can take a picture of my son, I see only my son in a room. But when the pictures are developed, sometimes, not all the time, depend what's over there, the camera see another person in a room. I couldn't see it. Now all these pictures that I'm going to show you are tested by a lab to make sure it's not Photoshop. Many of them are before Photoshop was even invented. So obviously they couldn't forge them. But this is all pictures who was tested one by one to see that they are legit. Let's see what the cameras of the people detected as people started to take. I'm skipping a lot, as you can see. You can see the rest in my website. We don't have time all day here. So here is a picture that was taken in 1992 in Auschwitz. Somebody took a picture of the bathrooms. There's a lot of bathrooms in Auschwitz. And unfortunately, maybe we can close that carton just for 1 minute. Yeah, like this. Yeah. Come inside. Okay, very good. Oh, now you begin to see more, even more. Okay. When they, okay, here. Can you shut these lights? Can anybody shut these lights? Out. Yeah. Okay, the lights. Okay, good. Oh, all right. This is a picture that was taken. Of course, the person who took that picture never dreamed that when they develop it, they see a person here, a boy or a girl, I'm not sure what it is, 2 eyes, right here, a nose, the lips, this is the head. This is an image of a soul of a person that was taken. So you can see the picture is not so clear. That was in 1992. Okay, in Auschwitz.
How come the camera taken?
I explained. Where were you?
I'm still here.
No, you were here? No. What the eyes, the frequency on the eyes is programmed. I'll give you an example what I mean. If you have a dog or a cat, then you know that sometimes you sit in the middle of the night in your house and it's very quiet, and all of a sudden the dog or the cat are jumping and running around and crying and looking out. They see things that we cannot see. So we wonder, what's wrong with this dog? He's going crazy, he's running around, he's barking. The dog sees those images and he gets very scared. It's not only people, it can be demons, it can be other things that exist. And he goes crazy when he sees it. We read whatever we read, we don't see what's around us. But the camera detects things that the eyes cannot see. That's the whole thing. So let's see some of other pictures. This is a picture that was taken of all these pilots, as you can see. A few days before they took that picture, one of the pilots, as you can see right here in the back, he died. The propeller of the plane hit his head and killed him. When the pilots took a picture, a group picture, when they developed the picture between this pilot and this pilot, they found another face. When they went close to look at the face, as you can see right here, this guy is this guy. So between those, this is another person. Who is he? The friends that just died a few days ago. He came and joined the picture. So this is this guy that is a pilot. After he died, they found his picture in the group picture. Now this is a story in November 1995 as a building in the United States that was burned completely. This photographer, his name is Tony Horhill, he came to take pictures of the burning building. When he developed the picture, he saw a girl. See a girl with a skirt, with a belt? This is a girl that was inside the fire. She cannot be inside the fire because the building is going on fire. But when he developed it, they saw mamash clearly her image. Clearly. When they started to go around and ask people in the neighborhood if they recognize these girls, they found out that this girl lived in 1977. That's 18 years before that case. She died 18 years ago. And she used to burn buildings. So now she's in a burned building, measure for measure. She used to build buildings. They caught her, she died, and now they find her inside the fire of a building that went on fire. It's very interesting. And this, they recognized her. Then this is another family picture that was taken. And while they took the picture, you see right here the boy? The boy wasn't there when they took the picture. Look, it's an image of a boy. I think there's another image here. There's two. But we're focusing on this one. When this family of Goyim took the picture, they found that picture, this image of a person that they don't know who is this boy. This is a typical picture from the 19th century. This is about 100 and something years ago. They have a granddaughter that she was 6 years old, and she died 2 months before they took the picture. First thing you have to pay attention, 100 years ago, how the goyim used to get dressed. That's what I told you yesterday in my lecture, morally, how we went down in our level, that everybody's walking today in the street, Hashem Yirachem, how people are dressed. So just to show you how the world used to be, 4 generations ago, even the goyim used to dress like Rebbitzen, you see? 100%. You don't see anything open, no bikini, no tight clothes, nothing. Everybody, the kids, the mother, look how the man is dressed. Also, no shorts, none of these things. Real respectable dress. And as they took the picture, this is the siding of their house. They are in a grass outside of the house. This is the siding. When they developed the picture, they found their daughter. 2 months before the picture, she died, and she is reincarnated in the siding of the house. You see here, the nose, the 2 eyes. I said that there is 2 more souls right here. 1 and another one. 3. There are 3. But they do not know the other 2. This is their daughter. So that daughter they recognize. Then, this is a picture of Tracy, 1975, Friday the 13th, whatever that means, I don't know. When they took that picture in 1979. She was born in 1975, she's 4 years old. They took the picture, and right when they took the picture, there's all kinds of images around her that nobody understands what it is. You see all this? You cannot see it clearly. Obviously, people do not understand who those people are. This is the first picture that was taken in a digital camera, not mechanical camera. This was in May 5th, 2001, with a digital camera. As they took a picture of this little girl, somebody else joined the picture. Half of her face is taken by the camera. Nobody knows who she is. Then, this girl somebody took a picture of her, and there's a man in a picture that obviously when they took the picture he wasn't there, but when they developed the picture they saw that a spirit of somebody is in the house. Now over here there's witches, maybe you can recognize them. No, it's just a joke, don't worry. Alright, when there's no volume the joke is worthless. When I have a speaker you hear a big shout. Okay, this is pictures that people took in cemeteries. And when they took a picture in cemetery, look at this image in the air, nobody knows what it is. Same thing here, spirit of a man, 2 hands, a head, nobody knows who he is. When this is other pictures that people taken, obviously these things were not there when they took the pictures, nobody knows what they are, but they are in space. This is a picture in a cemetery, look at these things. You know, all these circles, nobody knows what it is. Same thing here. And this guy ate a lot of cholent. His stomach hurts, but he didn't know that there's something about him. You see? And those couple, also something. This is a cat. The cat sees it. But the girl or the boy, whatever it is, they cannot obviously see it. But the cat see it, you can see. The cat is looking, this dog is snoring, so he doesn't see it. But here is another picture of this girl somebody took a picture of her and there's somebody else there. You see another face here? 2 eyes, nose. Okay. In my computer the pictures are much clearer than here. So if you want to see it after the lecture you can see. This is a very famous movie. This is an actor called Ted Danson. This is 3 Men and a Baby. Ted Danson was the star of this show. And when they filmed that in an apartment, I think in Manhattan somewhere, when they brought all the shooting to the editor to put the movie together, the editor saw that there is a boy that's not supposed to be there. So he called the director, he said, why did you put this boy? He's not supposed to be in a movie. So they say, we never put any boy. What boy? He said, come and I show you the pictures, the film. Come, I show you the boy. When they looked at the film, they saw this boy. He ruins the entire shooting. Nobody understands where this boy came from. Nobody understands. So they went to the owner of the house they're renting the place for. And as soon as he saw that boy, he started to cry. This was his son. And that son committed suicide with his father's gun. He took his father's gun from his bedroom and shot his head. And the spirit of the boy is still in the house. They did not see it when they were filming the movie. Nobody saw it. Later, when they looked at the video, the camera was able to see him, but the people could not see him. Obviously, if they see him, they wouldn't take a picture. They wouldn't continue to waste all their day. You know, if they saw him, they wouldn't be able to do it. So
was the video on the picture? Was on the video?
In a video. It's a video camera. Video camera. This is a video camera. The video camera saw spirits of a boy